Facebook Live. We are here on YouTube, and we are about to get started, but I got to make sure that I hit this button that will record at the same time. There we go. We are officially recording. We are officially live streaming at the same time. I want to take the opportunity to thank everybody for joining us here on ColumbusBlack.com. We are having a special series, and it is called ColumbusBlack.com's Countdown to Election Day 2024. And it's talking about the who's, what, why, when, where, the hows, no cap. For those that don't know what that means no lies. This is all the truth, right? So we have had a number of guests that have joined us on this particular show, and they have shared some real, truthful information because we live in an environment where there is misinformation and disinformation. And so we want to make sure you have the real truth and the facts and information, or at least know where to go to get the information that you need so that you can get out and vote, because we need everybody to go and vote. We have heard a lot of great things about this election and how consequential it is. So we want to make sure everybody gets out and do the things that they need to do. So listen, for those that don't know, real quick before we get started, introduce our guests. I'll let them have the floor to introduce themselves. I want to make sure everybody knows that ColumbusBlack.com is excited to be celebrating 19 years of service to the Central Ohio community. We look forward to continuing to grow and be a major part of our community, to be a vehicle and a voice so that those that need to know will be able to know, can be more engaged in the city of Columbus and throughout Central Ohio. We're an omni-channel platform, so we engage with our viewers and our followers where they are. We meet them where they are. So that could be through our website, through our email blast, our text blast. It could be online with a show like this is right here, or it could be at a live event. So we're tied to all the top event hosts and promoters in the market, and we're excited to be here for you all. But without further ado, I'm super excited because we have a returning guest to the show that was with us last week, and we have a new guest on the show this week, and they are definitely going to make me work out today. What do I mean by that? Well, during the show, when knowledge is dropped, I drop gems, right? Because that's what they're doing. That's what this signifies. So every time I do that, it's like working out, okay? So I know that these two are going to drop some knowledge, not just for me, but for each of you, and I'm looking forward to it so I can get a good workout. But on top of that, I'm going to ask everybody to do something for me. If you hear, you share, right? So what that means is if you hear something that you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow, that was a gem drop. If you're over there doing this yourself, you need to hit the share button, okay? That means somebody else needs to hear the exact same thing, and I'm sure that we're going to have those moments today. So without further ado, we always say ladies first. So I want to welcome back the Honorable Judge Terri Jamison with us today. And Judge, I'll turn it over to you for an introduction. So even though you were with us last week, I'm sure there are people who didn't watch last week, and I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself, your background, so we know who is here in the building with us today.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And we are excited about election 2024. I am Judge Terri Jamison, currently a judge on the 10th District Court of Appeals. This is my 12th year as a judge. I'm originally from West Virginia, born and raised, have been a United Mine Worker of America member, and still an associate member since I worked for U.S. Steel back in the early 80s, was one of the first women to go underground and have that honor. Moved to Ohio a little over 40 years ago. I've been a small business owner, sold my business, went back to law school, graduating from Capital University Law School. So I'm just here to just bring information to this discussion.
All right. And that's how she starts it. Now, listen, y'all, she said that like no big deal, right? Listen, it's a big deal, and we're honored to have you here with us. And we love and appreciate the work that you're doing for our community. So thank you so much for representing us today. All right. And so then from there, let's switch over to our new guest, Mr. Joseph Clark Jr. is on the line with us today, and we're excited to have you here all the way, y'all, from the West Coast. That's right. He's making sure he represents. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Clark. We're excited to have you. If you don't mind telling our listening audience a little bit about yourself for those that don't know who you are and the work that you are doing and plan to do.
Well, thank you. And it's an honor once again to be on this platform. I appreciate you giving this platform to us and to the community. Brother Lloyd, you always have been a positive influence for our community. And I'm glad I'm able to be here and on the platform with the Honorable Judge Terri Jamison. The renowned. Well, like my Masonic brother, Romy Stepney always says, I'm just an everyday brother. I'm a brother out of Youngstown, Ohio, where I was born and raised. Second generation union. My father was the first Black director of the steelworkers in Youngstown, Ohio, and that division there. And my mother served 42 years on the executive board of the NAACP. And they taught us about community. So I was just honored and blessed to be able to continue to run in labor. I'm now moved to Columbus, Ohio for 20 years now, and I am an international field coordinator for Ask Me International, where I serve our President Saunders, Lee Saunders. So, I just try and work in the background, working with organizations with Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated in Columbus with Boss Chapter, as well as a new chapter that I'm a co-founder of, or not a co-founder, but a founding member of in Youngstown, Alumni Chapter Tyro Sigma. And then other organizations that I work with in the community, as well as the Black Men's Voting Collective. We are doing phenomenal work in Columbus, Ohio. Outstanding work with yourself, Carter Womack, and Al Edmondson, and a host of other Black men who've come together to get the message out. And I'm honored to be able to work, and I'll end it with this, being a co-chairman of the Voter Awareness Committee for the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Ohio. And we also have a collaboration there with the Desert of Ohio, which is all the Shriners, and the Ohio Council of Deliberation and all affiliate bodies. Myself and my co-chair, David Whitehead, who you've had on previously. We chair those for those houses, and we do education as far as engagement, mobilization, and making sure we get the right word out. So that's a little bit about myself.
Outstanding. Thank you for that overview, but also thank you for the work that you're doing. The work that you're doing is significant in so many different ways. It's always interesting to me. People come on the show and they did kind of like what Judge Jamison did, right? They make it sound like, oh, it's not much, right? It really is a lot of work that you all are doing, and the impact though to lives is so significant. We definitely, Brother Clark, appreciate the work that you're doing at all these different levels to really make a difference. So thank you so much. And they said the fruit don't fall too far from what? The tree. Okay, so there you go. All right. He broke it down. He talked about mom and dad, and y'all heard it. So with that, we're going to go here. So Brother Clark, because we had Judge Jamison on last week, I'm going to start with you this time. And would love for you to share when you heard about the countdown to election day and the fact that we were even doing this. What excited you about actually coming on to the show, right? Like you said, I'm just an average guy. But when you heard that we were doing this work, what excited you to be here to have this platform yourself, knowing how significant this election is?
Well, I know that number one, that this election is very significant. As I told you previously, I'd rather be in the background, and it's just an honor for you to have this platform on. And when you asked me to be part of it, and I kind of put you off for a couple of weeks, I apologize, but
just a little busy. You were just a little busy.
Yes, but I know that it's important. It's very important. I'll say it again. It's very important for us to have platforms where people can get get information and disseminate it for themselves, so they can make a correct, educated decision when they go to the polls or when they're talking to others. So that's what excited me about being here, just to be able to give a little bit of knowledge that I have and support yourself and others.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. And we are also excited to have you here today and look forward to some of the things you will share. Judge Jamison, how about yourself? You obviously, this is round 2, right? So the cool part is we wrapped up the first one, which I thought was phenomenal. And it was like, hold up, there's still some more gems to be dropped. So not only what excited you the first time, but what made you come back the second time? Would love to hear that from you.
Well, there are so many things that are changing in the law, and because that is my purview, I feel that we need to know some of these things. Um, you know, kind of like Joe, my mother was the youth leader for the NAACP. So I've been a member of NAACP pretty much all of my life and know the impact that that work had because I started in segregation in West Virginia. But some of the changes that are going to be implemented, some of the laws are already on the book. There is one law that I wanted to talk about in particular that is called ballot harvesting. That's when one individual goes around and picks up absentee ballots for other people to drop off at the box at the early voting center. If you do that, you could be guilty of breaking a law. And I don't know how that's going to be implemented this year, but if you are not an immediate family member or in the same household with an individual, you should not be dropping off that absentee ballot to the box. So I know this is coming out. There's a lot of information that's going to be changing. We can only use particular drop boxes. Each county only has one at their county board of elections. As far as I know, there was some discussion around having additional drop boxes, but that law has not passed. So if you see a box anywhere other than at your county board of elections, I wouldn't use it because it's not. Well, and it does seem that funny that I'm saying that, but I believe Mr. Clark can attest to in California, they were actually setting up phony ballot boxes and collecting ballots that never made it to the polls. So these are things that we have to be aware of that are happening. We also need to know that there are at least 100,000 less Election Day polling places in 2024 than there were in 2020.
You said 100,000 nationally?
100,000 fewer right now.
That's significant difference.
It is significant, and most of those boxes have been moved in areas that have high concentration of African American and Hispanic voters. So we need to make sure that we are checking our polling places. So there has been a decrease in polling places since the 2016 election. So we're down over 100,000 polling places. And that includes some early voting locations in states that had multiple early voting locations.
Okay. Significant difference. Now, Judge, if you don't mind me asking, for those that they hear that, but it doesn't really resonate. Why would we have 100,000 less locations for people to go vote?
Well, when you think about who's actually trying to get to that early voting location, normally it might be a single parent. It might be someone that's a caregiver taking an elderly person. We have seen longer wait times in polling locations in minority neighborhoods. So when you reduce the number of locations, I can't stand in line longer than an hour. I've only got an hour for lunch. I can't get any more points. I can't lose my job to stand in this line. And we know We have these absurd laws where I can't give you a bottle of water in line anymore. I can't help you by holding your place in line anymore. So some people stood as long as 10 to 12 hours to get to vote. And because of a reduced number of polling locations, it would cause a longer wait time. So if you get frustrated, you get out of line. So these are things that we have to consider, knowing that if I'm a single parent, like I was a single parent, I could not have missed work to stand in that line to vote. So they're counting on that. We have 175% increase in females, Black females registering to vote between the ages of 17 and 24. So that 175%, we want to make it as inconvenient as possible for them to get to the polling place.
Okay, so that breaks it down as to why there would be
Well, that's
less.
just my thought.
That's your thought, right there. The possibilities of why it's creating, it could be these barriers to having the ability to vote, right, for many due to those constraints. So thank you for sharing the perspective. We appreciate that. Brother Clark, would you like to jump in here or add anything based off of your experiences related to what's going on as well as we lead up to the election?
Well, yes, sir. Well, it always has been in the numerous places in our community. And as Her Honor just spoke on, any type of way that can deter you, distract you, frustrate you to get you out of line. You won't come back tomorrow and do it. You won't come back the next day. But that's their efforts. We have to continue to have strong polling places and have pollsters there that can represent and watch the things that are going on and to stop some of the shenanigans that are going on. And then we have to advocate for other polling places to be increased in our communities so our folks can get there and we'll have multiple locations to vote at. When you're limited, the lines, as the judge said, the lines are long. We had multiple locations back in the day that we could go to. So it's an ongoing process, but this is why it's important to vote. It's important to have your vote cast, have your name on the ticket line to vote, because they are constantly doing different things. And then you also have issues like I just bring up policies that are being changed. There are still policies, like it's important for us to be concerned with the policies in our community, the policies restricting workers' rights to have a union and be represented. There's also about the reproductive rights that we have to be. I'm gonna go from the ballot box to why you need to be there. Reproductive rights, housing rights, when you get into the rights for federal minimum wage. You have to have, and maintaining the Department of Education. These things are all important in our Black community because when they start taking these things away, it takes away the fabric of our community.
Yeah. So I want to take a moment here, if you all don't mind. You just mentioned some of the policies, right? The goal for us is not to just speak at the level that we just did, where it's like, okay, these are the policies that are on the table, but day to day, what does that mean for our community? So if we break those policies down, right, everything from reproductive rights to unions to wages, the Department of Education, like, and from our community specifically, how does this relate to your everyday person that literally does not really like understand the significance of what these policies mean to them day to day? Because that's where I think we have somewhat of a gap, because we speak about some of these things, but it's like, well, what does that mean to me?
And if I can,
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Let's go. We're gonna go there. Let's go there.
Well, yeah, let's go there. And just say it for me and for my family. The rights, the rights to have workers to have the rights that people have fought for years. My grandparents, my daddy, my mom, others have fought for us to have these rights. If we don't follow these policies and learn these policies, they'll systematically take these rights away from us. You'll get to the point where child labor laws will come back, and you won't have safe working conditions, not only for us, but our children. If you get into the rights of reproduction rights, every woman has the right to have, in my opinion, to do what they want to do with their body. How could I be a legislator and tell them? And this is one of the things that the Black Men Voting Collective have been fighting on, as well as other minority organizations or organizations in the communities. I cannot tell somebody what to do with their body. And I would be remiss if I would tell my daughter and my nieces if situations come up. They should have a right to do what they want to do when you're talking about on a family level. And the minimum wage, our folks can't live on the low minimum wage that they have. Minimum wage has to increase. All right, you shouldn't have to divide between, am I going to pay my utilities or am I going to buy some food? Okay, and it gets down to just that. Am I going to pay my rent? I can have a house, but I don't have no utilities on. And then if you get down to education, even restricting the rights to teach Black history in our schools, we go even deeper there. All right, any other ethnic group can have their history taught. Ours need to be taught. Okay, this is on the personal level of an everyday brother. Okay, we make the mistake when we don't teach our children and don't teach ourselves, because a lot of us didn't have the opportunity to know this history. So we need to teach ourselves, then teach our children, so our generation can know the fight and efforts that our forefathers have done for us. So when I spoke about those, I went a little deep in depth on us, a few of them, and Judge, you're more than welcome to enlighten us some more, if you don't mind.
Please do.
And when we talk about reproductive freedom, we have to understand that that law did not just impact the right to have an abortion if necessary, but it also talked about having surrogates to birth your children or having in vitro fertilization. Those are very private decisions that are being made with a person and their doctor. So these laws would affect all reproductive, whether or not you could get contraception, all of those things. Mr. Clark might be old enough to remember, as I am, when a woman could not get birth control if she did not get her husband's permission. She definitely could not terminate a pregnancy without notifying her husband. Those decisions, have been regulated for quite some time. So I think, in like the 7th or 8th grade when Roe became law. So I was a freshman, I think, in high school when Roe became law, but I know the different things that people went through. And in particular, even where I lived in West Virginia, if you needed to have abortion or reproductive services, you had to drive almost 3 hours to go to a doctor to have those done. So we think about the burden on commerce, because you're having to cross state lines now if abortion access is not available in your state. And then there's some regulations in some states where they're trying to make it a crime for you to cross state lines. So now we have a burden on commerce, which is how we actually ended up with desegregation of hotels and eating establishments was through the Commerce Clause, because you cannot put an undue burden on commerce. So now women are found in that same predicament, where if you're trying to go across state lines to have an abortion or reproductive services or in vitro, or whatever your service is that you're trying to get, Is that a burden on commerce? So those are questions, that the law will be answering and will be going up, I'm sure, again to the Supreme Court. The other thing we look at with reproductive health is Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth. So we have that issue. So is that because we're not getting the appropriate medical treatment? Is it because our pain or our threshold is seemed to be higher than the average? I remember recently Serena Williams, with all of the money she had in her second pregnancy, was having blood clots, was complaining to her doctor, and her doctor ignored her complaints. Now, and we had another track star that died in childbirth. So these things are, and it's not based on your socioeconomic status. It's based on you being a Black woman and having a child. So we have that issue. When we talk about, we just had Labor Day on yesterday, and I know many of us said, thank collective bargaining for the 5-day work week, 40 hours a week, overtime pay, safety in the workplace, paid time off, vacations, health benefits. All those things came through collective bargaining. And my history in West Virginia, in the coal mine industry, was some of the most violent history in trying to obtain those rights for collective bargaining. So when we look at where we are, and they're trying to stop collective bargaining, trying to stop organizing, the power of the people is their strength when they come together. We know this. When we all go to the voting booth, we know the impact that we can have. We've seen it down through the years. But we as Black people have to stop being emotional voters.
Hold
We
up.
need to be educated voters.
Uh-oh. Speak. She's dropping those gems.
We have to stop voting because it's emotional.
So
I mean, this time, this election is consequential because democracy is definitely on the ballot. When you have a candidate that is telling you, I will make it a dictatorship, all of the freedoms that you have will be gone in a dictatorship. So we have to stop voting on emotion, voting all the way down the ballot, whether it's local elections, state elections, county elections. We have to take ownership of what's happening on every level.
Powerful, and well said. Brother Clark, I saw you shaking your head a number of times. Is there anything you want to add on to that before the next question?
How could I go behind that, sir? There's nothing to add on.
That was right, exactly.
Your Honor was on point. Thank you.
Yeah,
it's almost when you have to miss work to stand in a line to vote, it's almost a poll tax. The law has changed that we don't pay a poll tax. But if you're losing a day's wages to stand in line to vote, you're paying a poll tax. So we have to be aware of and educated about the history of why we are kept away from the polls. Now there's all of this disinformation that we are not informed that 18-year-olds don't need to vote because they're voting off of emotion. They don't have information. Well, it's up to us to inform them.
That's right.
You
and that's why this is happening. Go ahead, Brother Clark.
I will add this, it's in what Your Honor just mentioned as far as education. In the community organizations that I belong to, the Divine Nine, the Black Men's Collective, the Masonic Order, and all affiliate bodies, our goals is really to educate, engage, and mobilize. if we don't educate our folks, just like our honor said, that ain't about emotion. They will marketing to you about emotions to get you disembobulated about things. But if we give you the information and you read it and educate yourself, then you know what to vote on and how to vote. Okay. Just to mobilize ourselves, even when they talk about brothers who are convicted felons and them having the right to vote or not having the right to vote. Why should you wait for somebody to tell you when there's information online that'll tell you right from the Board of Elections? They can tell you that you can't vote long as you're not incarcerated. All right. These are just things that we have to continue to push. And the main thing is education, knowledge. They used to tell you they would hide information from us. They would put in a book. They said it on paper. They said it out loud.
Yep.
All right. Now we are in that book. You can't hide nothing from us no more. And on this phone is the biggest book you have. Everything you get. So I just encourage our listeners, our organizations to continue to engage in the mobilization of our communities and putting out good non-partisan information, okay, that is just educational information.
And I hope, because we do have the Black Men's Collective for voting this time, that they'll make an impact on those that are incarcerated for misdemeanor offenses, because they can vote by absentee ballot. So we need to make sure we're not missing those that are incarcerated just on misdemeanors down in our local county jails, because if they get an absentee ballot, they can vote. So we need to make sure that everyone is voting and voting their interest and being informed and mobilizing on all levels. Correct. Because this is a year that is the most consequential that we will ever have in our lifetime. We already saw January the 6th, when there was not a peaceful transfer of power, what that looks like. We cannot afford to have our democracy hang in the balance again.
That's true.
Thank you.
And we also are just a caveat to that, not only the misdemeanors, but we are targeting with the Black Men Collective, the high school kids, the youth, the young brothers and sisters that are coming into the voting age, and then trying to go in and educating the younger ones. So when they are at that age, they already know and are not misinformed. So this is a collective effort. And I thank you for mentioning that we all need to be doing and spreading that word, because our youth are the next ones to vote. And those young men that are 17 or be 18, young men and women, they need to be educated. So I'm so glad to see the activism that are going on, and these young folks are stepping up and speaking out.
That's true. The National Council of Negro Women has an 8-state strategy, and they have targeted several states, and they are targeting the 17 to 24-year-olds going into the college campuses, going into the high schools. If you're 17 and a half and you're going to be 18 before Election Day, you can register now. The other thing that they're trying to stop is anyone registering to vote that cannot prove their citizenship. So there is some talk about a law being passed that says you can't even register unless you prove your citizenship. And so there's just so many different avenues to put up barriers and obstacles to voting, when it should be broadly interpreted, it should be broadly accepted, and we should be broadly opening doors for U.S. citizens to be able to register to vote and to cast their vote.
Yeah, but yet you can work in their industry and you can work in their houses, but you can't vote. I just wanted to say that. I apologize.
Yeah, just had to let it be known. They had to get it out there. head, no cap, y'all. It's just, hey, the facts and the truth. That's what this is about. Okay. So speaking of that, I had a friend of mine send some information. She lives in the state of Georgia, and it was a couple of my fellow Tuskegee alums who are registered there, and for whatever reason, their voter registration now shows something different than it's ever shown before, right? Whether it's gender, whether it's ethnicity, it's just incorrect all of a sudden after all these years. And then here, I know we had well over 100,000 registered voters purged, right, as well. So we told people to make sure you're registered first. And I'm looking at the date now. We're in September 3rd, and we only have until October 7th to register to vote, and then it's on. So we literally have about 34-ish, 33-ish days left to make sure you're registered to vote, and there's nothing to take for chance. It's very serious, y'all. So
if you've changed your name, if you've changed your address, whether it's by divorce or by marriage, or you changed your name legally through the probate court, whatever type of name change you've had, you need to re-register.
And that's even like if you move out of your parents' home.
If you move, you have to re-register.
That's why we are doing QR codes that you can go to snap on the QR code, and you can go to check and see if you're registered, check and see if you're purged. The different organizations I've been working with, and I've seen others, and I just need to just blast the communities with these QR codes, because everybody have a cell phone and you can check it out.
Yeah, make sure you get that to us. We'll circle back, obviously, after this call, but we'll push that out through our email database and our social media channels as well, just to make it as easy as possible. All
and
right.
Don't forget voteriders.org if you need state-issued ID. Voteriders.org. You must have a state-issued ID. It cannot be expired. It must be current. So make sure that you have a current driver's license, state ID, whatever you have, make sure it's current. If you're in the military, you need to download your absentee ballot request. Military absentee ballot requests, I think, are already open. So they can start requesting their absentee ballot, because it takes longer for the military, and you want to make sure that you get to vote, because even if you're overseas, your commander-in-chief matters.
Yes, indeed. So something about what you just said, right? So literally everybody who has a birthday in September, October, and early November needs to make sure that they double check, right? Because expiration dates can catch you. We know it, and it happens to folks all the time, right?
All the time.
So very, very important. So you don't want to wait for hours in line, and then you get there and they say it expired yesterday, or you can't vote, and it will happen.
Yeah, that's
and because you no longer get it at the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, your license has to be mailed to you. So if you have gone in and applied for a new license, you need to have your old license plus the paper that they give you until your license comes back when you go to vote, because it takes about 10 days to get it back in the mail. So you definitely need to make sure you do that quickly.
Okay. So this is going to go back, right? Because we've done a number of these shows now. And I even know last week when Judge Jamison was on, we talked about it. But planning, y'all. Planning is critical. Okay. We know the dates already. So we already know we're supposed to check to make sure we're all registered. Then, you have a period of time to early vote. Okay. So you should be planning this out with friends, with family members, with coworkers, whoever, right? We know the lines are going to get longer as we get closer. So get ahead of it. Be intentional. Have a plan. Double check all these different things. Last week, Judge Jamison talked about doing your research and your diligence and going online and being able to see who's on the ballot. You can research, what do they stand for? Do they align with your values and what you need to be voting for? You have the ability to do all of that now. You don't have to wait. So while we're sitting around watching Netflix and all these other shows and football is back and baseball, and take the time, do your diligence. That's what this is for. All right, I'm getting off my soapbox. So back to you all. I do want to address a couple of things before we wrap up, y'all. So the first one is we have a lot of people who are on the line. I feel like y'all have done a great job already of saying why this is a consequential election, why it's so important. But we know that there are people that are either on the fence or people that feel like my vote doesn't matter, right? They feel disenfranchised. And this is a hot button. And I'm surprised sometimes when I go through certain groups or certain things on social media, and there's all kind of bickering about where people stand. And so it's serious, right? Everybody has their views and their perspectives. With democracy on the line, as we say, some people feel like that's not important to them. Some people feel like, it's about money, right? And they want their pockets to be padded and they want to live a certain way, and that's all that matters to them. For those that you feel are either have a different opinion and are, right, that feel like voting is not that important. Is there anything else you want to say to that person? Because there's a reason why they feel that way, and I want to make sure that they don't feel, once again, disenfranchised, right? I believe that y'all said it comes down to the information and the facts, but is there anything that you would want to share with them, understanding the magnitude of the election, and speak to that particular audience from your experiences?
I would say, if you don't think your vote is so important, why do you think they're trying to stop you from casting it? And that's number one. In our history as Black people, people died, literally died, for us to have the right to vote. They died just registering us to vote. They died for teaching us to read. So if our vote is not important, why has there been so much emphasis on stopping minorities from getting to the polls? We have to really think about that. Secondly, I know there's a lot of talk about inflation, but let's just call it what it is. Let's call it corporate greed. Because there have been billions of dollars of profits made that are not being pushed back, because we always have that conversation that as wealth increases, that it trickles down, but we know that it has never really trickled down.
Facts.
We've seen a reduction in wage-paying jobs, blue-collar jobs, but now we're seeing a resurgence of trying to get the trades back and preparing the next generation for the trades. So corporations are making billions of dollars. And what always puzzles me is why we pay bonuses to people that are bankrupting companies. They leave with bonuses.
Parachute.
They're being paid bonuses. And their company is in a bankrupt mode. If the average small business owner is not turning a profit, they don't go to the bank and get another loan. They don't. So we have to look at the corporate greed. We have to look, if you go to your gas pump, we're all complaining about gas prices, but the federal tax is only 19.5%, and the state tax is 38.5 cents a gallon. So you really need to look at where your money's going. If we got rid of the 38.5 cents that's taxed onto gas, we would be under $3 a gallon. But we know that bill was signed by the current governor. So we have to be aware of where our money's going and why we don't see the reductions. We've seen increase in the tax on gas. We've seen increases on food. We've seen increases on what it costs to transport food across the country. And we know that truckers need to work. We know that trains need to run. But why are we paying to bring in products from other countries when they have loopholes that they're not paying taxes? So, I mean, I know Mr. Clark can speak more on that, but I know there's loopholes that they're not paying taxes. You know, we need to do some research into our history
Absolutely.
because we have made trade agreements with China that allow them an open door policy to bring products into this country for sale that they're not being taxed for.
Mm,
But
mm.
you can't produce a product in the United States that you're not being taxed for.
Right. That's right. She's dropping all kind of gems, all kind of mics. It's just, y'all need to pay attention. I told y'all before, if you hear it, you need to share it. It is no way you listen to this show tonight and then take one thing away that needs to be shared with somebody else. Brother Clark, would you like to add to that?
You know, just briefly, and thank you, Your Honor, for just hitting so many pinnacle points that people need to look at. But you need to really, it comes down to, there are so many elections that I have worked with across the country, not only in the city, but across the country. There have been won and lost by 10 votes or 100 votes. That's why your vote is so important. Not only as the judge, Her Honor said, why are they trying to stop you from voting? But see, we are generations removed from our grandmother and family members being in the household and parents for numerous reasons. And it used to be that you followed the guidelines of your foreparents. But if you didn't have them in the household, you don't have that to follow now. Now you have to follow organizations like ours that are out here trying in your format that are educating you on why you need to do something, why you need to be prepared. You know, it comes down to who do you want in office that represents you?
Yep.
What type of person of character do you want in office, and not only character, but knowledge and in national events? Now, you know, you have to also look at why can't we see different people, not only Black men and women, but different people in office that look like us as a collective community of brown and Black that are in leadership roles and move in this country and are educated and knowledgeable in their profession to do it properly and know protocols. So, you know, when you asked about voting, how important we have to make sure it's important to us, and we emphasize that to our circle of influence. Then they can take it to their circle of influence. And when we talk about trade that has gone out of the country, we have to continue. Let me put it this way. Let me change that. The biggest thing right now is if you're not running for office, who are you going to put in place to run for office? City, local, state, national. I'm a guy in the background. Okay, I don't mind that. But I tell people constantly across the country, if you're not going to be a king or a queen, be a king and a queen maker. And it's our time to start making kings and queens, folks.
Right.
If you don't like what's happening in your city, in your state, and nationally, then find someone to run instead of complaining and being naysayers about your vote don't matter. This don't matter. It all matters, and I've seen it firsthand. I'll leave it there, sir.
Enough said. Again, mic drops left and right, okay? If you're not going to be the queen or the king, be a queen or king maker. Listen, y'all, it's up to you. In essence, what I took away from that, too, is stop complaining and do something about it, right? Be a part of it. If you don't like
if you don't like the
run for it.
candidates, if you don't like the candidate selection, run yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, put some support behind somebody else.
There you
but
go.
run yourself. Educate yourself on the issues.
Yep.
I know they see this gray hair in my head. That's not just from my good looks, and it's not
Is that
dyed.
great?
All
This
right.
is frosted by nature. So pretty soon my term is going to be up. It's time for somebody else to raise up and think about,
Right.
do I want to sit on the Court of Appeals for Franklin County in the state of Ohio? Because I am only the third Black person to sit on that court in the history of Franklin County. So we need to make sure that we have people that are interested, educating themselves, and getting ready to run for these positions, because our time is waning. I'm going to be asking Mr. Clark for a job pretty soon.
If we don't stop that, mister, that would be my father, but I thank you for that. She's hitting it right on point. I mean, us in the labor movement, us in the Masonic Order, the Divine Nine, we all have started working on who in our order or around our orders can run for office. Who knows the plight better than us?
Yep.
And then when we get out there, have a format, put folks behind it, and get out and support us.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing. You have some young folks that are running for office, but they can't find support. We have to learn how to teach, mentor, and engage them that they can have support.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You got it. You got it. Well, listen, y'all, that's not the end. We're about to wrap up, but we're going to actually do a 60-second wrap up. The 60-second wrap up is to give Judge Jamison, our brother Clark, the opportunity. If there's anything else that you wanted to share, we know that people get ready to come on this show and they always say, I want to talk about this. And then they get off the show and they're like, I can't believe I missed that. It was so big. It was so important. It's the only thing I wanted to talk about and I didn't mention it. So I want to give you this opportunity as we wrap up, and we're going to do it again, ladies first. But Judge Jamison, if there's one thing you want to share or anything you want to share, let's do a 60-second wrap up. It's all yours.
I think I covered everything that I wanted to talk about. Making sure that you know where your polling location is, making sure that if you've had a name change, address change, that you get that changed at the Board of Elections, making sure that your state ID is current before you go to vote. And if you don't have a state ID or driver's license, go to voteriders.org, voteriders.org, to help get a state ID. Know where your location is. Make a plan to vote. Make sure that, and just as a side note, they do have drive up at the back of the Board of Election for those that are disabled that cannot stand in the lines. You can drive up in your car. Someone will come out to you so that you can do your absentee vote. Check your county Board of Elections to see what accommodations they have for disabled, or if they have interpreters on staff, if you need interpreters. I did notice that we had new Americans working the polls last year. We always need poll workers in Franklin County, and they need poll workers in other counties. So if you're not working, they'll pay you for that day. They'll train you. Make sure that you can participate in the process. Oh, and the other thing, if you're not registered to vote, before I forget, you cannot serve on a jury. And we need to make sure that we have juries that are diverse. So make sure that you register to vote so that we can get you to come down and do jury duty. We have a lot of trials in Franklin County, and having been a criminal defense attorney, a lot of the juries do not comprise a jury of your peers. So make sure you register to vote so that you can participate in the criminal justice process.
Judge, thank you. Before we go to Brother Clark, I want to thank you for that. I mean, that especially for those who need it, the drive up or drive through voting component. I think that's very, very important, not to mention all the other things that you shared. So thank you for sharing all of those additional gems. I want to make sure we get you back on the show. We need to have a whole nother conversation about culturally the avoidance of jury duty and the impact of that. That's a whole nother conversation. We just don't have time for today. So, Brother Clark.
He's going to put me on staff.
Right, exactly. All right, Brother Clark, your wrap up.
Oh, I'll be limited. Once again, thank you for this format and to be able to be on a platform with the Honorable Judge Terri Jamison is quite an honor. And to be with you, my brother. I'm the direct person. I just say again, if you're not part, you don't have to be part of an organization, a Black Greek fraternity, sorority, Prince Hall Mason, Eastern Star, Black Men's Collective, Voting Collective. You could partner with any of these organizations in your community so you can be collectively make it stronger impression on your community. You can educate yourself by this cell phone to be more educated on what you need. But I would just say directly, if you're not part of an organization, find a group. And I would employ groups in cities. Why keep creating another wheel when you could be a spoke to a bigger, stronger wheel coming together?
Yep.
Everybody wins when we come together. All right. That's a continuous work that we are doing across the state and the different organizations I am with. We be an added spoke to the wheel so it'll be stronger. Okay. So I just implore you, if you haven't register. If you haven't, talked to your family members and encourage them, especially the youth. There are so many disenchanted youth that are worried about who made legislation to incarcerate who, what was done before. We are saying this to you right now. We all have done things that we thought in our time period was the right judgment thing to do. And if you take time and you live long enough, you can always change your mind and adjust. We need to have folks that care about our issues and have been through some of our issues to lead us in office. So get active. We work together, not apart is my motto. And I thank you for this time.
You got it. You got it. You got it. Thank you once again for those additional gem drops and level set. In case you were wondering where he stood, right? He said straight to it. Okay. It's up to you, but you got what you need to do what you need to do. Do your diligence, do your research, get registered, go vote, get engaged, get involved. All right. Y'all heard it. All right. So I'm getting off my soapbox. Listen, y'all, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. This is a labor of love, you could call it, right? This is for our community. I would be remiss if we had the most consequential election in our lifetime, as has been stated, and we did not use this platform to do exactly what was done tonight. What I need from everyone who does listen to this, I need you to take one quick moment and please just share it. That's it. You can love it, like it, leave a comment, but more importantly, share it because others need to hear this message, right? You know who your family members are, you know who your friends are, and I guarantee you there was at least one thing shared tonight you did not know. It's almost impossible if you have known everything that was shared tonight, right? Because there's some serious gems and my muscles are bulging. So I know that, okay? So now with that, we do have a guest on the line with us that jumped on the Zoom line, right? For those that don't know, you can register to join us live on Zoom, or you can also join us through Facebook or through YouTube as well. So I do want to thank Dr. Carter D. Womack, who's, we talked about it, right? The Black Men's Voting Collective. He's been leading the charge here in Columbus, Ohio for years now to make sure we were engaged and involved, and especially when it comes to our women and their reproductive rights. There's been a huge stance there that was mentioned earlier, and a huge movement here. So I want to thank him for joining us live tonight. Spread the word. We'll be back again next Tuesdays, every Tuesday leading up to Election Day. we will be here with another special guest and maybe even some repeat guests, which is really cool too. So with that, listen, y'all, thank y'all. Once again, go to columbusblack.com. And as I always say, in order to be more successful in your future, you need to understand a little bit more about your past. That's the reason why we just had some amazing panelists tonight, and I hope y'all just had a blast. And with that, I'm out. Have a good one, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.